Hello, everyone. As COVID-19 vaccinations continue to be administered around the world, plenty of people seem to be rushing to return to a sense of normalcy, but public health officials and experts warn there's still a long way to go until the pandemic is over. And what we usually report, or what most of the people believe is happening, is either patients who recover from the illness, or people who unfortunately die, or people who get vaccinated and avoid the disease. Well, maybe things aren't so clear. And although most people with COVID-19 get better within weeks to months of illness, some don't. And experts around the world are working to learn more about short and long-term health effects associated with the disease, who gets them and why, and whether new vaccines are helping deal not just with the contraction of the virus, but also with the persistent symptoms. Now, hopefully we're joined today by Dr. William Lee, a vascular biologist from Cambridge, Massachusetts, who started a study on long haulers, meaning COVID-19 patients who were not fully recovered. Let's first go straight to a story of a woman who recovered, then was unable to swim for quite some time, only to get better with her vaccination. And we'll get back to our talk with Dr. Lee. Let's watch it.
Jessamine Smythe says her happy place is in the water as an endurance swimmer. But a year ago, she contracted COVID-19. For months, the lingering after effects leaving her breathless, tired, brain-fogged, unable to swim, unable to work.
I was unable to ever really achieve a full breath. I could not fill my lungs.
That must have been an incredibly scary feeling.
I was terrified that I would never be able to swim again.
In February, Jessamine got Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine.
Within a matter of days after the second shot, I began to feel almost like myself.
Experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, say the long hauler symptoms of COVID-19 are real, not imagined.
Profound fatigue, muscle aches, temperature dysregulation, unexplainable tachycardia, and what people refer to as brain fog.
And anecdotal evidence suggests that between 30 to 40% of COVID-19 long haulers like Smythe could be experiencing vaccine-induced relief. It might be that the vaccine helps fight off the virus itself.
If the long haul disease is caused by persistent virus infection, then the vaccine-induced immunity will be able to clear the persistent virus reservoir and basically eliminate the source of the symptoms.
Or it might be that the body's own immune cells are what's keeping people sick, and the vaccine, in effect, calms them down.
The immune responses that are induced by the vaccine can help dampen the responses from these types of autoimmune cells.
It's also possible that the vaccine's not helping at all.
Many people spontaneously get better anyway. And if you get vaccinated and you get better, you're not sure whether it's the vaccine or the spontaneous recovery. So you'll have to do a randomized trial in order to determine that.
But Smythe believes the vaccine did help turn her symptoms around. Enough to help her get back to swimming.
I swam my first mile back in the pool and hit the wall and hung onto it and burst into tears and just hung there sobbing with joy and relief that I knew that my body could do this.
So, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Christos. It's a pleasure.
We see there's people who actually got sick and got better, but then they're actually having a scary sequence of symptoms. How severe is this, and how can they get fully recovered if there's a path that leads there, including vaccination?
Yes, well, COVID-19 has been an illness that's surprised medical researchers as well as practicing doctors since the beginning of the pandemic. Around almost every turn, we have found a surprise that we did not expect. And one of them is something that's been called long hauler syndrome or long COVID, or the official medical term is called post-acute sequelae of COVID. And this is actually a series of symptoms that emerges anywhere from a few months to 6 months to 9 months or even a year after recovering from COVID. Certain symptoms, everything from brain fog to racing heart to trouble breathing, gastrointestinal discomfort. More than 100 different symptoms have emerged that are still quite mysterious. And we don't know who winds up getting these long hauler symptoms and who actually is able to avoid them.
I see. Now, if this is a medical mystery, as I understand, it's not unusual to have people whose CT scans are read completely normal when they're actually not. Now, how are they supposed to know whether they have a long-term damage or not, whether what they actually feel is real or not?
Well, COVID-19 is a respiratory virus that we actually become infected with through our nose and our mouth and our lungs. We breathe it in, these aerosolized particles. And so naturally, the first place that disease can take place is in the lungs. We know this because if you have acute infection by COVID, many people have a cough, or if they become seriously ill, they wind up going to the hospital, where sometimes they need more serious respiratory or lung support, including ventilators in the beginning of the pandemic. But what we found is that after recovery, some people wind up having persistent shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, and they wind up having maybe some other symptoms or maybe none. And they're very tired and they are unable to catch enough oxygen. They feel like they're oxygen deprived. They go to their doctor, who examines them, and there's nothing wrong on exam. They then have an X-ray of their chest and nothing is wrong. They then have a CT scan, a CAT scan of their chest, and that also looks normal, yet they are still feeling short of breath. So an area of research that I've been involved with at the Angiogenesis Foundation in the US, and we're a global organization, we began last year realizing that one of the problems of COVID-19 is the coronavirus infects not only the lung tissue, but blood vessels throughout the body, including in the lung. So when a long hauler symptom came out, we began looking at these normal CT scans that looked like there was no problem. But we used a computer algorithm, a special technology, to be able to take the CT scan and literally analyze the scan slice by slice. And by doing so, we reconstructed the blood vessel system of the lungs. And we were surprised to find that in people who have long haulers, shortness of breath, normal CT scans, that when you reconstructed their lung blood vessels, that they were deficient, they were short of their blood vessels. They were missing many of their blood vessels, anywhere from 50 to 80% missing of the normal circulation. And suddenly we began to understand there was this long tail to COVID where vascular damage or microvascular damage to the smallest blood vessels of the lung could persist.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming this is a situation in which many doctors fly a little bit blind. And is it maybe a matter of just listen to what a patient brings to the table in terms of his or her symptomatology, as opposed to the other way around?
Yes, this is a situation in which the medical professionals are encountering a new disease that we've only known for just over 1 year. And so the textbook is empty, but the experiences of the patients who have the disease are full. And so this is an opportunity for doctors to learn from their patients, to pay close attention to what they're experiencing. There is no playbook that has been written about long hauler symptoms yet. And so we need to pay close attention to what our patients are experiencing. Something that was happening in the US when long haulers was first described was the patients were being frustrated because their doctor said, "Oh, your scans look fine, your exam is fine. This must be in your head. Please go home and rest." And, patients know what their bodies feel. When they are uncomfortable, they insist on wanting to have an answer. And so here's an opportunity, and I'm a researcher, a medical researcher, to really try to discover something new about a new disease. And so I think the humility of the medical professionals and the opportunity to apply advanced technologies can help us discover something new, not only about this disease, but potentially understanding new ways to treat problems that can arise after not only this pandemic, but potentially a future pandemic that could happen to us as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're also author of a book on the kind of food that helps tackle the virus. If I'm not mistaken, it's named Eat to Beat Disease. And my understanding is it's also published in Greek. Could you tell us a little bit more about it and why you think food is so important, in particular Greek food?
Yes, well, so I'm a physician and a scientist, but I decided to write a book, a popular book called Eat to Beat Disease, first in English, but I just received my Greek translation copy of it. I was so delighted to see this because I felt that having been involved with drug development for cancer, diabetes, and vision loss, blindness for many years, I began to study food as medicine using the same techniques to develop biotechnologies. And among the things that I discovered is that many of the foods found, for example, in Asia and also in the Mediterranean, the foods that we know are healthy can activate our body's natural hardwired self-defense systems, like our circulation, angiogenesis, like our stem cells to regenerate us from the inside out, both of which are important in recovery from COVID, because we talked about the blood vessel damage. Our microbiome, which is a whole other gut bacteria component that we're now discovering plays a role in this pandemic as well, where healthy gut bacteria is associated with faster recovery, and damaged gut bacteria is associated with more severe disease. Natural aging through our telomeres and our DNA. And of course, our immunity is our fifth body's health defense systems. Both our bodies are hardwired for this, but both medicines as well as foods can actually support this. But foods have immediacy, and people can make decisions to help themselves. It's a health care that can occur between visits to the doctor's office. And I'm happy to report that there are many foods that come from Greece that I've actually studied that have such benefits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A reason to feel optimistic in Greece. Dr. William Lee, vascular biologist from Cambridge, thank you so much for being with us and for your time on our stream today.
Thank you, Christos.